Okay, starting. Okay, now it's live. Let's just check and see. Let's do this. Starting. Okay. Now it's live. Let's check and see. I have to turn down YouTube because I get the feedback loop. Okay, cool. I'm just going to go in Facebook. Hi, everyone. I know that I'm live right now, and I'm kind of back channeling it. So I'm going to go in the Facebook group and just post quickly one more time the link so everyone can hear it. Okay, let me just snag the link, and then we'll get our show on the road here as Dina and Glenn are waiting patiently as I have muted them. Okay. All right. Let me just go into this real quick. Oh, Carolyn's on. Cool. Okay, so yeah, so welcome everyone. I know there's a few people in there that are watching, and Dina and I are actually in the Google Hangout. So this is the first Google Hangout that we've done, and like I said in the group, I kind of alluded to is that I'm really cognizant of what being a part of MTGEndurance is, and I think it's obviously being a part of the group and being a part of coaching, but there's so much more to it. And so this is the first of what I hope to be many webinars that we're going to do as a team. And Dina has graciously come on to help teach us about nutrition, and Glenn is going to help along as well. So if you have any questions on the right-hand side, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, you can type in and leave a comment, and I'll read those. And you can type in some Q&A. You won't be able to chime in terms of video or audio, but you can type the questions in there, and I'll kind of be watching in the back channel. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unmute Glenn. Let's see. And I should be able to unmute. Hold on. No, I can't unmute you guys for some reason. Glenn and Dina are hiding. I can't unmute them for some reason. Hold on one second.
I just unmuted myself.
Oh yeah, Dina, I think you can unmute yourself. Dina, you might have to click on the top. Yeah, there you go. Now you're unmuted.
All right.
All right, cool. So Glenn's obviously here, and so Glenn and I are going to help kind of lead the conversation, and Dina has graciously joined us. So Dina, thanks for joining us. Just kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you do, and we'll get rolling.
Sure. Thanks for this opportunity, you guys, and I'm excited to meet more of this team. So I'm a sport dietitian, and I actually have a certification in sports nutrition from the Academy of the Nutrition and Dietetic Academy. I guess it's been renamed this past year. Anyway, I'm a registered dietitian, and I have a Master's of Science in Nutrition Science. So I work with a variety of athletes, mostly endurance athletes, runners, triathletes, ultra runners, you name it. And I essentially do consulting. So if an athlete needs assistance of any kind, be it weight loss or learning how to fuel for competition, then I'm your gal. That's it.
There you go. And so Dina and I, we've known each other for a little bit, and Glenn has actually worked with Dina specifically in a one-on-one basis, and I know Dina's worked with Chris Benjamin and a couple other people that have kind of been around in MTG and definitely spoken with some other ones as well via email and that. So we're really happy to have you here. So Dina, kind of to start off, like, what does that? I mean, you kind of mentioned it, but like, what does a nutritionist actually do? I mean, it kind of sounds like, I mean, I know what a running coach is. Obviously, we provide schedules and that, but how does a nutritionist kind of operate, and specifically sports nutrition?
Yeah, it's a great question because there are different kinds of nutritionists out there. Each one can have certain specialties. So for sports nutritionists, we can work with a certain population of athletes. They might be college football players, or they might be professional triathletes, or just, the average fitness enthusiasts. Basically, though, what we want to do is assess the athletes' daily nutrition, their performance nutrition, so how they choose to fuel themselves to support the activity or sport that they want to participate in, and then figure out from the athlete and various conversations, what are the challenges. So some athletes, like I said earlier, may have weight loss or body composition goals. I need to be leaner for my race coming up, or I'm having fueling issues. So we need to figure out what those challenges are, what's getting in the way of making progress, and then through Q&A and trial and correction, we figure out what needs to happen to make progress and achieve those goals.
And yeah, and so the reason we're kind of here, obviously, is we're planning on doing three, kind of nutrition webinars, or three things about nutrition. So like, obviously people have come to us and come to Glenn and myself in terms of coaching. They want to get better as a runner. So, why is it equally important? It sounds silly, but like, why should people pay attention to nutrition, or what is, if they're already working on coaching, they're already working on being a better runner, like how is nutrition actually going to take them to the next level, or is it important? Because I know you sometimes read about runners that are like, I run 100 miles a week and I can kind of eat whatever I want, or some people think about that. And so how does nutrition actually play a huge part in that? And I think we maybe understand why, but it's not necessarily something a lot of people focus on, I feel like.
You there, Dina?
She might be lagging behind a minute. Let's see. I'm going to kill my video. Dina, could you hear me there? Hold on one second. So for those that don't know, Dina lives in like the mountains of Colorado, and so her internet connection might be a little slow. Let's see if I got her.
I just sent her a text too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So hold on one second as we see if we can get her.
Hey, Ryan, I lost you there for a second.
Yeah, that's fine. No problem. Can you hear us now?
Yeah.
Cool. So basically, why should we pay attention to nutrition? People are putting in all these miles and it's important, but like from a nutritionist standpoint, obviously Glenn and I know that people should come to a coach for running because we can personalize things and we can do that. And is it the same with nutrition? Because I feel like you see, and honestly, in my, the way that I do it, nutrition is something that's important, but something I honestly don't think about focusing a lot on. And I'm honest with everyone. So like, how is focusing on nutrition really going to help me train better? And it might be a simple answer, but I think it's one important to actually put into words.
Thanks, she dropped us again.
Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to hide you, Glenn. I think you can hear me. Let's see. And I'm going to do one thing real quick. See if I can speed it up. Dina, you lost us. Hold on one second so I can adjust the bandwidth. Let's see. Let's drop it. And then I'm going to cut my video. Okay. Glenn, will you go up to top and turn your camera off? You should be able to go up. Yeah, there you go. Okay. So, guys, hold on one second. We're just going to get Dina back. Her internet might just be a little wonky tonight.
Trying to reconnect right now.
Yeah, that's fine. It'll probably take her a second to get in, so sometimes the internet's a little bad. We tested it last night and it worked out well, so it just takes a little second. Sorry, guys, that are there. Yeah, no worries.
I do hear a lot of people, though, Ryan, to address what you. A lot of people talk about running 50-plus miles a week, and they think about, I can eat whatever I want to eat.
Yeah, right.
So I look forward to hearing her answer as to what's important and when it's important and all that good stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
There she is.
Dina, are you there?
Yes.
Cool. No, you're fine. So Glenn and I just cut the video. So basically, how is nutrition going to make me a better athlete, or like what are signs that I should actually like pay attention to nutrition?
Okay, so this is a complex question, but I'll try to keep it simple. There are 3 or 4 areas that I think are important to tell someone whether or not nutrition is important. So one would be just general. So if you have any sort of medical condition, whether or not it's an officially diagnosed disease or condition from a doctor. So something like high blood pressure, or I can't digest my food very well. I have blood sugar issues, prediabetes is in my family history. So that would be a sign right there. We need to really give some attention to nutrition.
Okay.
Secondly would be body weight, body composition, which kind of goes with what I just said, medical conditions, because obviously if we're not at a healthy body weight, that can just aggravate or bring on other medical conditions and make us more at risk for disease later in life. And then a couple other areas would be just your day-to-day living. So if you're having issues with your energy levels, you're moody, you're hungry all the time, well, you can't get full, you're just suffering during the day, you get sleepy, those are signs that something is going on with your nutrition that could be manipulated to promote better living and well-being. And then lastly, and I think this is what draws the attention of athletes more, is just performance. So how are your workouts going? Are you making it through your workout? Are you hitting your targets for the goal of the session? Are you recovering well? Are you having stomach issues, like nausea or bloating? And maybe just for some athletes, they just don't know because there's so much information out there in the media and sports nutrition companies saying you have to do this or you have to eat that. And so if you just want, a sort of a unbiased opinion, someone like me can come into the picture and really help discern or work with the athlete to get things in line and make priorities with regard to what your nutrition goals are.
So Dina, how long have you been a sports dietitian?
Specifically in sports nutrition for, let's see, the last 6 years.
Okay.
6 to 7, yeah. Prior to that, I was working with athletes, but I was also doing more clinical work, so working in a hospital setting and doing private practice on the side. So it was a mixed population.
So one quick question that I get a lot as a personal trainer and as a running coach is so many people talk about how they've talked to a nutritionist or a dietitian at a hospital to get their guidance, but yet they're training for a marathon. Can you explain that difference a little bit between someone that would work in the hospital setting with, say, diabetics, geriatrics, things like that, and then what you do?
Mm-hmm. And can you hear me okay, Glenn?
Absolutely.
Okay, so clinical dietitians are trained more rigidly in that medical aspect. So looking at blood values constantly, and to be honest, some of the nutrition guidelines are based on older, older nutrition parameters that have been put forth from our government that may not necessarily translate to a healthy athletic individual. So a sports nutritionist is more, the research is that sports nutritionists do is focus more on the athletic population. And then you bring in medical conditions if that is needed. So, a new runner that has diabetes, we have to look at both sides. Okay, what are the health implications and those medical nutrition needs, along with what are the sport nutrition needs, and blend those two together.
And that's a really, as I turn on myself, And that's a really good point, I think, Glenn. And that was a really good question in terms of how that difference kind of comes in. So I know one thing that we talked about, Dina, kind of in the back channels was like daily nutrition patterns, or how someone comes to a nutritionist, or they're coming to you and they're new to nutrition, because we really wanted to start out these webinars and give kind of some tangible things. So someone wants to focus on their nutrition, to start out with. We had talked kind of about daily nutrition patterns. So can you talk about talking about balancing blood sugar levels? And a couple people in the back channels have asked, they work out early in the morning. Like, how am I kind of looking at daily nutrition patterns and how they're going to help me, perform better or, reach my nutrition goals?
Yeah, it's so important. And I think it's one of the most important things when I start working with an athlete is really examining or understanding together what you do, how you feed yourself every day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, or if you skip meals, how is that food or fuel, however you want to look at it, impacting your quality of life and your athletic performance. That daily nutrition really sets the foundation for optimum health, and without that, we can't achieve our athletic goals. So it's a really basic principle, but I think a lot of people and athletes overlook the importance of what they do with food on a daily basis. And we tend to just think about, what should I eat before I run or after I run, instead of the importance being what you do every day. And it's not to say that you have to have this textbook nutrition 100% on all the time. It's more just knowing, being educated in that sense so that you can make those smart decisions.
Well, Dina, one thing I want to touch on, because I've had this talk with some of my athletes and some people locally. You and I, when we worked together last year, we talked a lot about daily nutrition, but you also talked about a healthy relationship with food. Because you talked about me going to lunch with my daughters after church, and we always go to the same place, and there's always chips and queso involved. So you talked about that healthy relationship with food. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit so people don't feel like, and it kind of addresses what you just talked about, you don't have to be 100% spot on, but have that healthy relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, it's one reason people are scared of people like me, because they think I'm going to tell them you can't eat ice cream and you can't have chips and salsa. And that's just not the case with the majority of dietitians will say things like, everything in moderation. But for me, it is more, let's figure out and understand the importance of that healthy relationship with food. So let's not view food as evil, certain foods are evil or good or bad. Classifying foods like that doesn't really give us a good mindset. And so we can tend to put ourselves down. We may use food as comfort and then feel guilty, and that whole set of emotions can just set off certain individuals to binge eat or totally blow their nutrition for the day, rather than being able to view that cup of ice cream like, you know what, I've eaten really well today and I'm enjoying this socially with my family. I know tomorrow I'm right back on track. So a lot of perspectives there that we need to have to foster that healthy relationship with food and be okay with food choices.
Right. And the other thing that I really liked about Dina and working with you last year was you never asked me to count calories, and we always talked about blood sugar levels and energy. So I want you to talk about your thoughts on calories versus energy and feel and stuff like that, and talk about calories as calories of an apple versus calories of, say, Skittles or Three Musketeers.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, calories. I'm not a big fan of counting calories unless it's someone who needs some weight gain, or we have some other medical conditions, then we might count calories right away. But generally, like with you, Glenn, that was not where I wanted you to go because so many reasons. I mean, and you can probably attest to this, that it's easy to overlook the quality of our food if we're
Right.
only looking at numbers.
Right.
I mean, there are a lot of other issues with counting calories because people tend to underreport. You know, we forget to measure every single morsel of food or weigh every single thing. So technically, counting calories is a very time-consuming process. And so when athletes come to me and they've been counting calories, you know, I will still examine that and include that as part of my assessment. But we have to both know, okay, there's some inaccuracies there, and even the databases that count calories or do those online, the online tools like that, they're not always accurate. So, you know, there are a lot of layers there where error comes in. But overall, I think the main thing is learning how to appreciate the quality of your food and learn what is a high quality meal rather than a 500-calorie meal. So like the 100-calorie apple versus the 100-calorie Skittles. Yeah, if we were just logging calories, at the end of the day, we would see X number of calories, and we may not consider the importance or what lies behind those calories. So the apple gives us way more nutrition in terms of fiber and vitamins, antioxidants, all those things that make us strong athletes and healthy athletes versus the empty calories that we find in Skittles or candy, things like that, that don't fuel us for the long haul. You know, they might give us a temporary pleasure, and like I said, that might be okay when and if we're in that right situation. But if we're only looking at those numbers, we're losing sight of how the importance of that food item can help us achieve our goals.
Absolutely. Okay, so when you talk about quality calories, we start talking about, that's when you get into the proteins, the fats, and the carbohydrates. And I have this discussion a lot with athletes too, is some people see carbohydrates as just sugars, and they don't differentiate between good carbs, bad carbs, and also good fats, bad fats. Can you kind of, I know it's not real easy and real simple, but kind of go through your protein sources, good fat, good carb, bad carb.
So yeah, I'll try to do that, and let me know if I'm answering the way you were intending. But carbohydrates, and I think a lot of people think of carbs not just as sugars, but like your bread and pasta, you know, and we forget about the foods that have carbohydrates like vegetables, fruits, even things like yogurt and nuts, peanut butter, beans, you know, whole foods that aren't processed. So, and again, I try to not say good and bad carbs, but more the ones that last longer and give us more nutrition. So those that might be quote unquote good would be those kinds of carbs that you can, you know, harvest from the earth, and they're not coming out of a package from the Frito-Lay company. So, you know, we're talking about your, what did you say?
Or Hostess.
Right, yep, Little Debbie's. So yeah, your vegetables, your fruits, beans, I mean tofu, things like this, quality carbohydrates. I mean, there are numerous whole grains as well that can be included in that realm. So oats, barley, brown rice, wild rice, the list is, you know, lengthy. But those are energy sources, right? So carbohydrates are still important for athletes. It's just that we need to look at where are they coming from, when are we bringing them in, how are we using them. And then, should I go on to the protein and fats?
Yeah, go with that, and then that'll lead me into my next question because I've got several questions for you.
Okay. So protein, and I think some of us forget what proteins do, but I mean, those essentially building blocks for maintaining, repairing, synthesizing the tissues in our bodies, especially muscle mass. That's what most of us think of. Um, but not only that, I mean, protein's important for our immune system, production of hormones, and so forth. So proteins coming from, animal proteins, chicken, pork, beef, bison, game. Then we have fish, and then for people who don't eat meat, we have plenty of plant proteins, so beans and soy foods, um, nuts, seeds, those kinds of things. So variety of proteins there. I can't think of a protein that would be one that I wouldn't recommend. I mean, I love when I find an athlete that would actually eat liver or organ meats because it's not heard of very often these days. But very, very powerful protein right there. And then we've got fats, Glenn and Ryan and everyone else listening. So fats, I think from a nutrition standpoint, what fats, such a concentrated energy source. So for every gram of fat, we yield 9 calories of energy versus 4 calories from carbohydrate and protein. So fats give us a lot of oomph, per weight. And besides that, fats like oils, olives, avocados, nuts, seeds, even high-fat dairy items like cream or half and half, yogurts. I mean, a lot of people just like the taste of fats, and it makes us feel full, which is one benefit of including fats in our meals and our snacks. But fats are really important not only for that energy source, but for our immune system health, protecting our organs, that insulation. We need fat, right? We can't have 0% body fat. We would not be alive. So a lot of good reasons to have fats in our nutrition.
Okay, so which kind of leads me into my next question. You hear so much about the different, I don't want to really call them diets because I hate that word, but nutrition plans like going paleo or going vegan or whatever else you want to be there. Talk about a good, solid nutritional ratio, proteins, fats, and carbs.
That's a good one, and that one is certainly an area where I would look to the type of athlete we're dealing with to, give more specifics. But I think ratio-wise,
does it help you to talk about what we went through last year?
maybe. I mean, are you talking percentages, like,
Yeah,
30%? Okay.
yeah.
We have to be careful there because when we talk percentages, now we're implying that someone's going to count. You know what I mean? If I say 40% carbohydrate, how do you know it's 40% unless you're counting?
True.
So, I mean, we just have to be careful there. So that's where ratios, we can use visuals. So if we have a plate of food, or let me use the palm or the hand model instead because that might be easier. So if you open up your hand, your left hand, all the way, so fingers, are out. You got from the base of your palm to the tip of your fingers, that could be your protein amount. That whole, not just the palm like they used to teach nutritionists way back when, but the whole palm. And the other hand, your right hand fully open, would be vegetables, fruits, that kind of thing. And then we're going to have another little wedge, possibly for something like a whole grain or a starchy type of food like potato or rice. And I should say with that first protein amount, a lot of times what we're going to find with our protein is that it has fat in it. So if you think of salmon or any chicken that's on the bone, maybe pork or beef. There's fat in that, so we don't need to necessarily add a bunch of fat to that meal unless that protein is very lean. So like Glenn, you would often eat chicken breast, right, with no skin maybe or no bone.
Right. Correct.
It's super lean protein, right? And then you would have a nice mound of vegetables,
Right.
Colorful, right? Because that's what we want. Color represents variety of nutrients.
Correct.
But protein and then your fiber from your vegetables, that may not make you full for very long. And I think you and some others, can attest to that. So that's the importance of the fat addition to give us more fullness.
Okay.
So that's where we might say add some avocado, or let's have, if you eat dairy, let's have some cottage cheese that's not fat-free, and add that on the side. Or if you like pesto, that's a fattier condiment or a, sauce type deal. So let's put pesto on your chicken. And then we've got a more complete meal. So depending on the athlete, that might be the model where we focus more on protein and carbs coming from vegetables. And then we add in those fats to give us fullness. And if we're talking for maybe someone who's doing very high intensity workouts, or, a very anaerobic athlete, we might want to push a little bit more then of that grain addition or that starchy vegetable like potato, or the grain being preferably a whole grain like rice or brown rice or millet or barley or some of those other fancy quinoa, those kinds of grains, just to give us a little bit of extra carbohydrate to support the intensity of the workouts that athlete is doing.
And I know a couple people in the chat, Dina, have asked, and you brought it up about dairy. Can you talk, because there's a lot of, I don't want to say misconceptions. I mean, I don't say misconceptions. I actually think that's what they are about dairy. And some nutritionists say, they want to keep it in. Some don't. Kind of just talk a little bit about dairy and what role it plays in terms of good nutrition, or how you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't forbid it when I work with an athlete unless there is an obvious intolerance, or if the athlete is complaining of some sort of allergy and it's been tested through a valid allergy test. So I know there's a whole bunch of resources out there that claim dairy can't be digested and it makes us sick. And really, we also just need to step back and look at that athlete's overall nutrition, because that 1 cup of yogurt in an athlete's entire day is probably not the problem. It could be the 5 packages of Skittles that they had later in the day. You know what I mean? So we do have to put it all in context. And again, I mean, I'm sensitive to it because it is a hot topic. So I certainly, for those who do include dairy, I like to recommend organic. Let's look at how much, and let's make sure that if you are doing milks and yogurts, let's look at your other proteins and make sure we've got a variety of other ones coming in. Gotcha.
Okay. Another question that comes up often with, say, a newer runner, newer marathoner that wants to cut weight at the same time. Maybe they're trying to lose 20, 30, 40 pounds, whatever it is. Most often they try to just stop eating so much, but can you talk about, and maybe it's not a definite number, but like the basal metabolic rate, and that a person does have not necessarily a number they have to hit, but does that make sense where I'm coming from on that?
Oh, if they were to count calories or just get a baseline?
Right. For that athlete that's wanting to drop 30 pounds, I've got a couple that I work with here in the local gym that, she's figured a basal metabolic rate at 1,800 and some, and she finds herself eating 1,000 calories a day. And she's not losing weight.
Yeah, that's a great point, because the basal metabolic rate is typically I'll just say that baseline level of calories that if we were resting, so not working, not moving around, just sitting there all day, what is the minimum number of calories or that baseline level of calories just to maintain your current body weight? Okay, so if hers, for example, was 1,800, and she's doing 1,000, I mean, a lot of these online tools or textbooks or the media will say, well, you should lose almost, almost 2 pounds a week at 1,000 calories per day. The old formula was 500 calorie deficit every day will bring you a pound of body weight loss per week. That's been poo-pooed now and not true necessarily. So 1,000 calories can actually, in that situation, may actually be slowing her level or her ability to burn fat because she's not getting enough energy for all of her other systems to be supported. Because we have so many systems going on in our bodies. This is very complex. And if we underfeed, then all of those processes can't function normally. The thyroid may slow down or, start having some issues there. And thyroid is key, especially for women. So low calorie or underfeeding can actually be prohibitive of weight loss. So for her, for example, I might say, I'd have to look at her exercise and her daily activities, but we might say, all right, let's bump that up by 300-400 calories and make sure they count. So remember, 300 to 400 calories. What does that mean? Okay, let's put in 3 ounces more protein. Let's put in another fat and another serving of fruit or vegetable. Instead of saying a blanket 300 calories and whatever you want it to be, we need to make that quality come in so that her blood sugar levels remain stable. She's still feeling energetic. Does that help?
Yeah, and that's a huge thing, I think, Dina. I mean, I know, personally, I can tell when I'm not taking in enough calories, especially when the mileage kind of ramps up and it goes back, I think, to you're talking about quality, calories. So if you're taking in quality sorts of foods, and a lot of channel feedback has been, maybe that people aren't taking in enough fat, so they need to think about that they're not taking in enough calories and they're actually not hitting those goals because we try to think, okay, I need to lose weight, so I need to take in less calories, and we've all heard of people that's not the case. So how does, and so that kind of maybe goes back to the original thing we talked about, where like daily nutrition patterns, right? Like making sure you're eating food that's well timed throughout the day. And I know we have a lot of early runners in the morning, and I know Carolyn asked the question in the beginning. So how can people kind of make sure they're getting their caloric intake throughout the day when they might be getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to run, and they're jumping in the shower and they're heading off to work? Like, can they space things out throughout the day? Is it okay to take kind of little things in? And talk a little bit maybe about the timing specifically for like when they might want to get up and eat and when they're taking in calories, so that they can make sure that they're not having that issue and saying, oh, I didn't have time for breakfast, so I didn't eat anything, and now I'm already behind on what I should be taking in for the day.
Yeah, that's a good area to discuss. And I think, this is an area where women might be slightly different than men. And I think from what I've seen and all the athletes I've worked with, women tend to neglect their morning nutrition a little bit more. But depending on the intensity of that run, if it was, let's say, interval work or hill repeats or something like that, or a progression run, it is important, especially for women, to try and get in that first meal, if we even want to call it a recovery meal, but that first nutrition within 30 minutes, especially for women. If it's an aerobic type workout, early morning, and the athlete has body composition goals or weight loss goals, the timing is not as essential. Again, this is for aerobic, so zone 2 or zone 1 type of workout, or low zone 3. It's not as essential to hit that 30-minute window for your first nutrition of the day. I'd say within the first couple hours. But that's where we need to look at that quality and make sure we've got protein in the morning. And this goes for men as well. Because classically, if you think about breakfast, and maybe you guys can give examples of what you've seen, but breakfast classically is a high carb breakfast, like toast and juice, maybe a little tiny bit of peanut butter on that toast, and then, I might munch on a granola bar. Like there's barely any protein. And it should be something more like, a veggie omelet or a protein shake with some fruit and spinach in it, something really quick, for the busy individual. But not neglecting that protein amount first thing in the morning. It's really important for those early risers who nail their workouts in the morning. But timing, our blood sugar levels tend to go up and down every 3 to 4 hours. So if we wait too long before we eat, that's when those cravings can hit, or we want to eat the entire contents of the fridge, So we don't want to wait too long. However, on the other side, I also want athletes to really get in touch with what is hunger and what does it feel like. Because we either ignore it sometimes or we just can't gauge it very well. And so, that's kind of, I'm getting a little distracted, but timing essentially every 3 to 4 hours would be a good time frame for someone to just take a look at what you're doing right now. And if you have 8-hour gaps and you're suffering later in the day, that probably warrants a little snack at that 3 or 4 hour mark, just to break up your timing or that delay between nutrition, and not promote some things that can lead to overeating later on in the day.
Yeah, so last year when you and I were working together, we did kind of make a shift about halfway through the year, because you had me eating or snacking I think we talked about every 3 or 4 hours originally, but then about midway through the summer, maybe even going into the fall, you talked to me about only eating when I was hungry.
Yeah.
Can you explain the real difference in that type of thinking?
I know. I think originally with you, Glenn, and with a lot of other athletes, it's a step progression. So eating every 3 to 4 hours, we're looking at what you're eating every 3 to 4 hours and trying to just transition your body to burn fat more efficiently, instead of being too carbohydrate dependent and having a higher carb nutrition plan. I wanted to help your body burn fat better, and so I wanted you to eat every 3 to 4 hours, but eat things that kept your blood sugar level pretty stable. So again, that's that protein plus a little fat and fiber foods from veggies, fruits, and maybe a little of that grain. And I think as you made that change, you started to feel fuller longer or not get as hungry very often. And so forcing you to eat every 3 to 4 hours didn't make sense for you. And I think, if you don't mind me saying, weight-wise, we hit just a slight plateau. And so we wanted to shift things a little bit more.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so that's when, all right, it's time. You know your body much better now, and you are, you have learned how food works for you differently. And so that's when we made that next step. So now I only want you to eat when you're hungry, which happened to be maybe every 4, upwards of maybe 6 hours, but you honored that hunger, and then you chose wisely because you were educated on what to, put together in your meals.
Dina, about when we were talking about fats and proteins and that, a few people, Amelia and Jess, have been asking specifically about fruit. And I know a lot of people are talking about sugar now as the culprit for, being overweight and for that sort of thing. So can you talk about fruit specifically and the role of kind of sugar and how that interacts with sugar in fruit and sugar kind of in other sources? I know sugar is kind of a large topic, but should we be including fruit as a snack? Can you eat too much fruit? If I have 15 apples during the day, is that bad? Is it bad if I eat a whole bag of grapes? and kind of
Um,
how that, how that plays into it.
yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, because sugar is the new evil, right? It used to be fat, or maybe for some people it is fat and sugar. Anyway, with regard to fruit, absolutely we can include fruit. However, it's important to know that fruit, yes, when we consume it, it breaks down into sugar, right? And what happens as a consequence is that our blood sugar level will increase or spike when we have that piece of fruit or 15 apples. Um, the problem with that is when we have that blood sugar spike, we get a consequent rise in our hormone insulin that's secreted from the pancreas. And sorry to get a little sciencey, but insulin spikes drive fat storage, and that's something for those listening that have body weight goals, specifically body fat loss goals. We do not want to promote fat storage, right? We want to lose fat. So we want to place that fruit or put that fruit with another food that will help balance blood sugar better. So what I'm saying is to not eat that fruit by itself. Let's put that fruit with a protein option or a little bit of a quality fat. So that could be, a slice or two of deli turkey, or it could be a cheese stick, or some, raw almonds, something like that. And that protein and that fat will help mediate that blood sugar spike that can occur from the fruit sugar. And so that's one thing that definitely needs to be understood. And then as far as amounts, I mean, yeah, it's possible to overeat fruit. Um, like a bag of apples, or, eating 8 pieces of fruit with meals. I mean, we need to rein that in, or pull the reins in a little bit more, just for the reasons I mentioned earlier, because it can aggravate our blood sugar levels and make us more prone to actually gain weight, even though we think of that food as a healthy option.
And I know that this isn't going to be the first time that we talk about nutrition. We're going to plan on doing a couple of these. So to kind of set the stage for everyone, I know a lot of you have heard about metabolic efficiency and using fat as fuel. So we don't want to get into that topic right now, just because of the time frame and respecting Dina's time in terms of being here late. So we will talk about that the next time that we meet. And prior to that, Glenn and I'll talk to Dina offline and get some information that you guys can read before, so you can learn more about it. But I just wanted to throw that information out there, because it's such an awesome topic and something that Dina talks a lot about, and is definitely one of, especially her and working with her colleagues, are at the forefront of that whole push. So I don't want to shortchange that at all, because I feel that it's really important to discuss.
Sounds good.
So Amelia just asked, kind of on the fruit question, what about bananas and melons? So I guess maybe specific types of sugar or specific types of fruit, because I know that people like to snack on fruit just during the day. So what types of fruits kind of have that high, I guess, will cause that high insulin spike, and other ones that might, cause a little bit less of them, if there is that distinction, or if kind of all fruit falls in the same category?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, some will refer to the glycemic index, and there are tables and databases out there that you can look for on the internet. So it will list each individual fruit with a set serving amount, or portion amount, and then tell us how much will this drive up my blood sugar. So you can refer to that. I mean, typically things like your citrus fruits, or fruits like pineapple, watermelon, some of those types can aggravate or bring on that blood sugar spike a little bit more than a fruit like blueberries or pomegranate or strawberries. I tend to look for ones that have the most antioxidant content, like the berries. So those really deep colored fruits are generally your best bet. Even cherries that's another great example. Now, you will see, if you do look up that glycemic index, you might be scared, like, oh my gosh, cherries, raise my blood sugar. But if you look through the list, you'll see other foods that are either higher in that glycemic index, or the thing to remember, I guess, would be put that fruit with protein or a fat, and we're much better off right there.
Good. Glenn, do you have any follow-up questions from that?
Well, I see there's a discussion about fruits kind of on the YouTube page there. I wanted to talk about, real quick, clarify, because last year when you and I were working together closely, when we talked about fruit intake, you suggested apple or berries opposed to any other fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Why would it be those two distinctly?
I'd have to look with you, because remember, a lot of what I do with you may not be for the next person. So
Right. So I guess I should say, what are you looking for when you guide someone through the fruit world?
Yeah, I look to the athlete's food preferences. So, if you don't like blueberries, I won't force you to eat them. But also looking at overall nutrition. So where can I help you eat foods that will promote optimum health, anti-inflammatory type foods, and so forth. So berries are right up there in the top, in my top 3. Apples are great, Glenn, and I think for you, because it was a convenient thing for you personally with the work you were doing, and it's just a good grab and go. You don't have to clean, chop, you know what I mean? And high fiber, soluble fiber content is great with apples and things like pears. So I'm looking mostly for anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, filling, and then convenience for the particular athlete.
That sounds great. Ryan, do you have anything else you want to add? I think this has been a great first episode.
Yeah, for sure. I just kind of threw it out into the audience and asked if people had some follow-up questions. Some people were asking specifically about race day nutrition and that, and I know for everyone, when Dina and Glenn and I talked offline, we had talked about doing probably 2 or 3 of these webinars, where the next one we talk about race nutrition and specifically nutrition for performance, and then talk the next one about other topics that come up, because as Dina can attest to, nutrition is a very, I jokingly asked her if she wanted to talk about nutrition yesterday, and she said, how many hours do you have, or how many days do you have? And so it's important. What we wanted to do is make sure that we're giving out tangible information, and I know that I had stressed that a bunch to both Dina and Glenn about things we want to learn, and we want to make these webinars really accessible for that people that, even like myself, assuming that Dina's going to explain to us all this information from a really concrete level and a very a very specific level to start with, and then we'll be able to branch out and talk more specifically about types of nutrition and nutrition for performance as we go along, about metabolic efficiency and those types of things. Dina, is there anything that you can think of off the top of your head that you might want to add in to kind of close it out, and then I'll see if there's any kind of floating questions around that relate to the topics we talked about today, and I'll also take down the questions that relate to race nutrition and keep them for the next one.
Yeah, I think one thing would be, if there's anyone listening that's hesitant to either ask you guys about their nutrition or seek someone out like me, like, what can I do to, how do I know what I should do, or what do I do from here? I think one tip that I would give is to just, and this might sound old-fashioned, but get a notebook or use your phone, like the notes thing on your phone, or just start a document. And for a week, every day, write down when you eat, what you eat, and how you're feeling, the reasons why you're eating, and make notes for yourself. No one else has to see it necessarily, but how is your energy level? How is your mood? What's your appetite doing? Are you eating because you're stressed, or are you starving all the time? And just for a week, if you reflect on that, I think it will tell you a lot about your current nutrition status, if I can put it that way. Because if you see things like, oh my gosh, I ate 8 times today and I didn't have any protein, you might just for yourself be able to pick a few things to start improving without bringing me or one of your coaches in. So I think that would be a recommendation or something I would just add to this webinar.
Dina, that's really huge, and I think that's something actually we're gonna implement. We'll do as a team over the next week or so, and I'm definitely gonna be in on that as well, as just make sure that we're doing that. And that's super awesome to add in because it's really tangible advice, and that's what we wanna have, and that's what you've given us in terms of talking about calories and how you feel about counting them and fruits to eat. So while we obviously can't learn everything there is to know about nutrition tonight, nor in even the 3 webinars we're gonna do, I really appreciate you giving tangible information and really facts that we can use and that we can put into use now. And now I know I can't eat a bag of apples when I'm sitting around doing my work, so I'll stop here. But Glenn, do you have kind of anything else to add? And then it's 9:55, so I'm going to check the chat and see, but I want to be respectful of Dina's time and everyone, especially on the East Coast, that might got to get to bed early.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to thank Dina for her time. I can't tell you how invaluable she was to me last year and helping me accomplish my goals. And thank you so much, Dina, for being a part of this. I look forward to future episodes, and I'm glad you're a part of this team. And if there's anything you want to add, just let us know.
Thanks so much. This has been fun. I really appreciate the chance and the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I guess if it's okay, Ryan, I can
Go.
give my email address.
Yes, please give your email.
Okay.
Megan asked, so give your email address, your website, and like books or anything like that. If you want people to read, please tell them, because we have you here because we believe in what you do. So please share it so people can find that information.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, well, our website is fuelformance.com, and that's fuel, the number 4, and then MANCE.com. And my email, if anyone has a question or just wants to learn more about what I do or my services, my email is Dina, D-I-N-A, at fuelformance.com.
And so thank you so much, Dina. Like I said, everyone that's still around, we're going to touch base with Dina and schedule, 1 or 2 more of these in terms of talking specifically about race nutrition, more about for performance, and then kind of get some feedback and see other nutrition topics that we'll touch on in the future. And Dina is in the Facebook group, guys, so if you guys do have any questions, make sure to ask them. And she's obviously a busy lady, as she's also training for the Leadville 100, which is coming up next month. So make sure to just tag her in some questions and give her a little bit of time to answer. But you can make sure to ask questions and we can follow up on some things. And then we'll schedule the next one here going out. And this will be you'll be able to watch this as well. This will be recorded, and I'll send out the link for everyone when it's live. So Dina, thanks so much again for coming on board, guys. Thanks for all coming in and participating in the chat. I hope that everyone enjoyed it, and we're really gracious for you to take the time to do this, Dina. It's really fantastic, and I know both Glenn and I appreciate it a lot.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
No problem. Glenn, anything else to add before we close up?
I am wonderful. This has been a pleasure to be a part of, and it's always a pleasure to listen to Dina talk about food, as long as she leaves cinnamon rolls out of it.
Will do.
Awesome. Thanks you guys so much. Thanks everyone for tuning in to the first Mouse to Go Endurance sessions, and we will be live with another one next month. Everyone have a good night, and I'll post the links when they go live here in a couple minutes. So thanks, Dina. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and have a good night.
Thanks.